Wait, you're on the...
It is? I must have read that.
I almost laughed so hard.
Put them back there. When you're working on okay. First thing, folks, yesterday we took notes on ag and the environment, and there's two things missing from your list. I apologize for that I should mention to you. So if you would add the word desertification and salinization. Desert with one S, otherwise it would be desertification, and that would not be a bad thing. Okay? So desertification, just as the English language would think you would spell it. And the other one is salinization, and salin is S-A-L-I-N, and then ization, just as the English language would have you think it was spelled. Okay?
Okay.
So what is desertification? It is if we remove vegetation from dry regions, the soil loses its ability to hold moisture, and we can create desert out of not desert. So desertification is the creation or expansion of deserts by removing natural vegetation. The region south of the Sahara is called the Sahel. The Sahel region is growing into the Sahara Desert because farmers there are trying to plant, not successfully. They're removing vegetation for firewood and other things, and they are causing deserts to grow. Agriculture can have that impact.
Can you say the definition one more time?
It is the growth of or the creation of deserts by removing natural vegetation.
Okay.
I'm sure you could get a much more detailed definition in a text, but that is basically how it works. We remove vegetation, the soil loses moisture, and the desert can advance because of that. The second one is salinization. Water naturally has some salt in it. Okay? When we water a lot, when we use a lot of irrigation, the natural remnant of excessive irrigation is salt in your soil. So salinization is the increasing levels of salt in soil. It's the increasing levels of salt in soil due to excessive irrigation. Okay? Desertification is, salinization is not. And then the last thing I want to talk about is sustainable yield. During PLC time today, Bolt and I were, did I tell you about the test issue? She doesn't have the newer one on her jump drive because it's trashed, and I only have the 2009, so I'm restructuring that test. Anyway, when I went over sustainable yield, I realized we hadn't had a conversation about that through any of our note processes. And I want to tell you basically through a couple of stories what it means. In 2005, I ran 2 marathons, and yes, there's a point. Okay? The funny part of the first story, well, the sad part, the interesting, and whatever part of the first story, I was training to run the marathon in sub 3 hours. I ran a half marathon about 6 weeks before the marathon, and I ran it in 1:28. So I was on pace to be able to break that 3-hour marathon. After the marathon, I was pretty sore, or after the half, excuse me, I was pretty sore. Ended up not being able to run for almost a month from a mild injury. When I did go to run the marathon, I thought, you know what, I can run that pace, I'm just gonna see how long I can do it. So here's the humor, there's 2 funny parts of that. I have a sweating problem. Some of the hockey players know my sweating problem. I don't know if T was part of this, but I did a P90X workout in the wrestling room one time, and I created sweat circles, so I had to keep moving. And Ben Gustafson brought some of the hockey players in, and he saw me the next day and he said, "What in the heck So I produce sweat at a great rate. But anyhow, in my first marathon of 2005, men wear Band-Aids on their nipples so that the friction doesn't make them bleed. It's really kind of gross. Sometimes you'll see guys run by and the blood run down their shirt and you just realize what kind of agony they'd be in. It was a hot day and I took my shirt off, but I forgot that I had Band-Aids on. So I ran for about 7 miles with no shirt and Band-Aids, which doesn't really look right. So, but because of my sweating problem, at about mile 16, somebody yelled, "Way to go, sweaty guy!" And anyway, here's the sustainability part of the story. I got to the 13.1, I got to the halfway point in under 90 minutes. It took me 3 hours and 20 to run the marathon. I did not sustain that pace for the remainder of that marathon. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I was able to, with the investment I had, run 6-minute, 50-second miles for 13, almost 16 of the miles I was still on pace. 17 got hard, 18 got really hard, 24 was really hard. My wife joined me and she's like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then she's like, "Come on, let's run." I'm like, "No, come on, let's walk." So I was not able to sustain it. Let's apply that agriculturally. We know right now that we can produce an incredible abundance of food. What we don't know is if the demands we are putting on the soil will lead to a collapse. We don't know if we are irrigating to the point where we will salinate soils to a degree where they're not repairable. Those are the sustainability questions. The yield we have right now, we know we can do. What it means by sustainable is a yield that with not increased inputs and with not irreparable damage to the field, we can grow it forever. Here's an example. We could grow 1,000 bushels on these acres, but next year we might need more fertilizer. Next year we might need to bring in some composting because we wore out the soil so much. If it gets more expensive every time, if the capital that goes into it increases, it is not sustainable. It means we're adding more to have to sustain the yield. So what it means is, a sustainable yield is a harvest that can be maintained into the future at the same cost. That make sense? My second marathon that year, another funny story. Not the ending up in the hospital part isn't the funny story, but I did. And I vowed at that point to never run another marathon. However, before that, I vowed that I was going to run a marathon in every decade of my life. I ran one in my 20s. I ran 2 in my 30s. The question is, am I going to run one before next November? As fat as I am, the likelihood is no. I tried to run 3 miles on the treadmill last night. Okay, anyway. What was I saying? Oh, so the funny story in my second one is I have a white t-shirt and my sisters and nieces and nephews and family signed it. The cool part is it said "Go Berry" on the middle really big, and I'm not kidding. I bet I heard 1,000 times, "Go Berry!" But, so my sweating problem, I didn't want to lose the shirt, so I wore it till the 23rd mile and I finally took it off and carried it. And then I got to the end and I was really I was dehydrated and I laid down and I was really struggling to stand up and the nurse came by and she's pushing on me. She said, "Did you fall?" I'm like, "No." And I looked down and I had like a green spot and a blue spot and a purple spot from the marker sweating through my shirt onto my body. So, but I did not sustain that marathon either. I did make the half and under 90 minutes and I finished that one also in 3:20. So, you get sustainability? Yes? Okay, let's correct the formatives quickly, and I will point you in this process to test answers. So, have a highlighter or a pen ready as we go through this. Now you know why we didn't have time to review, because I had to tell you my marathon stories. I have a lot more marathons.